Good morning and welcome back to Read Aloud. Today I am dressed in jammies and I have my bear friend here. And the reason I do is sometimes our classroom friends in school at home use Read Aloud as a bedtime story. So I'm giving a little salute to them. All right, so we're reading The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane by Kate Dicamillo. And when last we were here, Edward had this vision where he was going into the house on Egypt Street, into Abeline's house, his old house, wearing a fine suit of red, seeing friends, old friends from before, including Sarah Ruth, who was now a what? She was a star. So, is that where he still is? No, in fact, he is here in the doll store with Lucius Clark, self-proclaimed doll expert mender. And in chapter 24, there's a visitor in the store. Who is it? Do you remember? Let's find out. And so Edward Tulane was mended, put together again, cleaned and polished, dressed in an elegant suit, and placed on a high shelf for display. Now, why a high shelf? What do we put up on high shelves? Yes, our parents and grandparents and people put nice, fancy things on high shelves. Why? So they don't get hurt. They're very fine, don't want them hurt. So, does Lucius think a lot of Edward? He thinks he's expensive. He might bring him a lot of money. From the shelf, Edward could see the whole shop. Lucius Clark's workbench and the windows to the outside world and the door that the customers use to enter and leave. From this shelf, Edward saw Bryce open the door one day and stand in the threshold, the silver harmonica in his left hand flashing brilliantly in the sunlight flooding in through the windows. "Young sir," said Lucius, "I'm afraid we made a deal." Do you remember the deal they made? Where Bryce gave up Edward so that he could be fixed. "Can't I see him?" asked Bryce. He wiped his hand across his nose, and the gesture filled Edward with a terrible feeling of love and loss. "I just want to look at him." Lucius Clark sighed. "You may look," he said. "You may look, and then you must go and not come back. I cannot have you in my shop every day mooning over what you have lost." "Yes, sir," said Bryce. Lucius sighed again. He got up from his workbench and went to Edward's shelf and picked him up and held him so that Bryce could see him. Here's the illustration. Edward looks very fine now, similar to how he looked in the beginning. "Hey, Jangles," said Bryce. "You look good. Last time I seen you, you looked terrible. Your head was busted in and..." "He is put together again," said Lucius, "as I promised you he would be." Bryce nodded. He wiped his hand across his nose. "Can I hold him?" he asked. "No," said Lucius. Bryce nodded again. "Tell him goodbye," said Lucius Clark. "He is repaired. He has been saved. Now you must tell him goodbye." "Goodbye," said Bryce. Don't go, thought Edward. I won't be able to bear it if you go. And now you must leave, said Lucius Clark. Yes, sir, said Bryce. But he stood, without moving, looking at Edward. Go, said Lucius Clark. Go. Please, thought Edward, don't. Bryce turned. He walked through the door of the doll-mender's shop. The door closed. The bell tinkled, and Edward was alone. Now, was he really alone? Remember where he is. He's in a doll shop. Now, he doesn't care for dolls, so maybe he feels like he's alone, but is he really alone? And I know it seems super sad, but I promise things look up in the end. Chapter 25. Because look who's here. I wonder what Edward thinks of them. Technically, of course, he was not alone. Lucius Clark's shop was filled with dolls, lady dolls and baby dolls, dolls with eyes that opened and closed, dolls with painted-on eyes, dolls dressed as queens, and dolls wearing sailor suits. Edward had never cared for dolls. He found them annoying and self-centered, twittery and vain. You know what vain means? It means like, think a lot about yourself. You just think you're wonderful. Kind of funny, ironic about Edward thinking someone else is vain. Remember, he felt that way in the beginning, that dolls were beneath him. This opinion was immediately reinforced by his first shelf-mate, a china doll with green glass eyes and red lips and dark brown hair. She was wearing a green satin dress that fell to her knees. "What are you?" she said in a high-pitched voice when Edward was placed on the shelf next to her. "I am a rabbit," said Edward. The doll let out a small squeak. "You're in the wrong place," she said. "This is a shop for dolls, not rabbits." Edward said nothing. "Shoo!" said the doll. "I would love to shoo," said Edward, "but it is obvious that I cannot." After a long silence, the doll said, "I hope you don't think anybody's going to buy you." Again, Edward said nothing. "The people who come in here want dolls, not rabbits. They want baby dolls or elegant dolls such as myself. Dolls with pretty dresses. Dolls with eyes that open and close." "I have no interest in being purchased," said Edward. The doll gasped. "You don't want somebody to buy you?" she said. "You don't want to be owned by a little girl who loves you?" Sarah Ruth, Abilene. Their names went through Edward's head like the notes of a sad, sweet song. "I have already been loved," said Edward. "I have been loved by a girl named Abilene. I have been loved by a fisherman and his wife, and a hobo and his dog. I have been loved by a boy who played the harmonica, and by a girl who died." "Don't talk to me about love," he said. "I have known love." This impassioned speech shut up Edward's shelf-mate for a considerable amount of time. "Well," she said at last, Still, my point is that no one is going to buy you. They did not speak to each other again. The doll was sold 2 weeks later to a grandmother who was purchasing her for a grandchild. Yes, she said to Lucius Clark, that one right there, the one with the green dress. She is quite lovely. Yes, said Lucius, she is, isn't she? And he plucked the doll from the shelf. Goodbye and good riddance, thought Edward. Riddance, like get rid of something. The spot next to the rabbit stayed vacant for some time. Day after day, the door to the shop opened and closed, letting in the early morning sun or the late afternoon light, lifting the hearts of the dolls inside, all of them thinking that when the door swung wide, this time, the person entering the shop would be the one who wanted them. Edward was the lone contrarian. So he's contrary. He's not the same. He's the opposite of what the others think. He prided himself on not hoping, on not allowing his heart to lift inside him. He prided himself on keeping his heart silent, immobile, closed, tight. I am done with hope, thought Edward Tulane. And then, one day at dusk, right before he closed the shop, Lucius Clark placed another doll on the shelf next to Edward. Wonder what adventure this will bring. Here's chapter 26 for next time. See who's there. You think he's happy about it? We'll find out. See you next time. Bye, guys.